Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews, and it's a pretty good sized week. It's been a couple minutes. So talking about WonderCon. So, uh, so first of all, I mean, it was great to be back to like a really good sized con, more of a normal con. Not that I don't like small local ones, but this is really, I think, the first big test of conventions that we've really seen so far since we've really gotten past like the Omicron variant. And while the show was actually good, it was a little weird, but not in a bad way. It was so Friday was actually a very light day at the convention. It was honestly, it was so light I was able to walk the entire floor while actually taking the time to talk to friends, creators and stuff like that. So it was a very odd day but a very good day in that sense of you could spend time. I got to actually talk with a lot of creators. One of my favorites was Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad, who were special guests of the con. I got to and hopefully I'll be doing an interview with them soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Not right away. We'll work on it. But I also got to talk to Dustin Nguyen and Paige Hazley Warren, and really a bunch of other people that were there, and it was really nice. And while, as sadly there is, there was kind of a lack of comics, which sadly is more the norm than not. There were a fair amount. I think there was a decent selection of like trades and graphic novels. The Artist Alley is really amazing. WonderCon has just a really fabulous WonderCon. The panels were a bit on the light side. There was a couple panels that my friend went to where one was canceled kind of at the last minute, and another one the panelists never came to the panel for whatever reason. I did make it to the Superman and Lois panel, and Superman and Lois was there in person. Really, probably the biggest panel that they actually had was the Bob's Burger panel on Sunday. And the entire cast was there, and they were promoting the Bob's Burger movie. And lots of questions from the audience. The good news is I was able to record that entire program, so I've just got to upload it to YouTube. So hopefully I'll get to that in the next day or so. It's just been super busy trying to recover from the convention, but it was a good con. Probably one of the busiest booths was actually, there were two busy booths and they were right close to each other. Obviously the Funko booth was pretty darn busy, and but I was able to get the soda banana split set, which I was very excited about. And the WonderCon booth. So not only did WonderCon have the wonderful Jen Bartel cover on a shirt, they actually had lots of older shirts. They even had some that went back to when the show was in San Francisco, and so that was nice. I was able to get some older shirts from the show, which was really nice. But it was a good show. I really had a great time. Like I said, it was weird but good. It wasn't a bad weird. It was kind of strange because I think we're trying to get back to a sense of normalcy of doing things like this. The good thing is that I would say a good 98% of the people wore their mask. There was it wasn't a hard mandate, but they did check vaccination status. You had to have a negative test or proof of vaccination before you could even go into the convention, and you got a wristband to show that you had passed. So I think that was a good step, and I would assume that we'll probably see something pretty similar to that for San Diego Comic-Con in July. They've set the dates, so we'll, fingers crossed, we'll kind of see what happens. So with that being said, let's get to the comic book reviews. There's a lot this week. First up, we have Earth Prime Batwoman #1 with the main story written by Natalie Abrams and Kelly Larson, with artwork by Clayton Henry. And there's a a Luke Fox backup by Camrus Johnson with artwork by Michael Calero. So this is I guess they're coming out with some Earth Prime specials, which i.e. are based on the CW universe of superheroes. So this is the first one. It's a 6-issue miniseries. I'm not so of course now that Ryan Wilder is now Batwoman, so it's her take on Batwoman. And in the beginning, it there's a little thing that tells you where in the series this takes place. It takes place in like the 3rd season, which is currently going on. So it talks about Poison Ivy and stuff like that. But really, the main story is Clayface, which is kind of interesting. And unfortunately, I'm really, really far behind on the show, so I don't know if Clayface has actually shown up in the show, but he's in the comics. So it's, once again, the story by Abrams and Larson, it's a nice story. It does a good job of capturing the continuity of the show, but putting in more of a comic spin, which I think works pretty well. I think if you're a fan of the show or a fan of Batwoman, I think it's pretty easy to pick up. Like I said, I'm a bit behind on the show, but the comic actually was a nice. I think you could read it had you not been watching the show. So I think in that case, it's really good. I will say, I really having Clayton Henry do the artwork. It's really it's quite nice, and he draws a really good Clayface, so that's a plus. So, and then there's a short Luke Fox backup by Johnson and Calero, and it's a nice little short story. It does its job well. Overall, I think it's nice. I mean, I wasn't necessarily overwhelmed with this, but I did enjoy it, and it is a 6-issue miniseries, so there is continuing story that takes place after this. So if you're a fan of the show, I think you should check it out. Next up, we have Spider-Punk #1. Written by Cody Ziegler with artwork by Justin Mason. So once again, a lot of times I'm not. I don't hate Marvel Comics, but it's hard for me to get into it. I know there was a new X-Men book. I've tried so many of the X-Men books. I can't do it anymore. But I just totally get lost. But this one seemed, I don't know if Spider-Punk showed up before. This seemed pretty straightforward. I mean, it is Hobie Brown plays Spider-Punk, and then there's there's a Captain America and there's an Iron Man. They're like punk versions of them, and it was actually I have to give Ziegler that it was a pretty decent story. I think. Even though, like I said, I've never seen the character before, he did a good job of kind of setting up who's who and what's what, and Kraven is the villain in it, and it's basically, so it's like street gangs, so you have like the Spider-Man superhero gang, and then you have the Kraven bad guy gang, and it was actually pretty interesting. I mean, I think there was the story was interesting, kind of set everything up. You got to know the characters a little bit. I think the one thing I really actually liked was Mason's artwork. It just had a really nice kinetic energy and really fit the tone and the feel of the story that Ziegler writes. So I think it's kind of worth checking out. I will forewarn people, there has been paper issues, and the lesser Marvel titles have been printed on really just crappy paper, and most of them, I wouldn't say that they're damaged, but they're all wrinkled and everything because the paper's so thin that it was that just as a forewarning on that. But otherwise, I think it was pretty decent. Didn't overwhelm me, but I think it did its job fairly well. I'll probably check out the second issue to kind of see where it goes from there. But overall, I think it was decent. Next up, we have West of Sundown #1, written by Tim Seeley and Aaron Campbell, with art by Jim Terry. So this is okay, it's a vampire story. I know, let's get it out of the way. But we have Constance Der Abend is the vampire. So what it is it starts off during the Civil War where there's a soldier, Dooley, that is burying a kid, and then he uncovers Constance, and they sort of create this friendship. So there's kind of a jump to like the Victorian era, where what it is he helps find basically it would be like people who are like they're slumlords or the killers and stuff like that. He helps find her people that basically, if they die, it's not a bad thing. So he finds bad people for her to survive by drinking the blood. And so they go to this party, she kills this guy, and then when they go back to their house, it's on fire and she gets burned, and of course her coffin burns. So they decide to head out west to kind of get away, because it's like they've been found out what they're doing. And so that's the setup for this first issue. When she starts getting out west, there's you kind of learn of who is actually following her, and I don't want to give it away because it's a nice little reveal at the end of the first issue. And I have to say that Seeley and Campbell actually, it's kind of a fun, different take on vampires. It still has a lot of the tropes and things that make up a vampire story, but I think they came up with a good enough twist that it does a good job of like kind of feeling fresh, which I think, especially, with vampires, it's kind of hard at this point. The really big win for this book is Terry's artwork, which is really, really quite nice. I really enjoyed the artwork on this book. And like I said, it was kind of a surprise. I mean, because at this point it's like, oh, it's another vampire book. Let's see where this goes. And like I said, the creative team did a really good job, and I really think it's worth checking out. I was really quite surprised with it and intrigued to see where they take it from here. It was, like I said, it was good first issue, nice setup for the second issue, so we'll kind of see where it goes. Next up, we have Alice Ever After, #1, written by Dan Pancian, with artwork by Giorgio Spalletta and Dan Pancian. So what this is it's Alice. She's all grown up, but she's she's become a drug addict, but the reason that she takes the drugs is to go back to Wonderland. It allows her to slip into going back to Wonderland. But really what it focuses on is the fact that she's a drug addict, and now it's her father. The family struggles with her and how it makes them look, because everybody kind of knows that she's this drug addict, and also she's a thief, that she's stealing stuff to help pay for the drugs. So it's really an interesting concept. Pancian, once again, everybody knows the story of Alice in Wonderland. We all know, that. But what he's done here is given it a really fresh take, but not strayed far from Lewis Carroll's source material in some respects. He actually does a really good job of setting up the story, and there is a reveal at the end of the issue that I don't want to give away. It's not like it's shocking or anything, but it kind of shows that maybe Wonderland does exist in the real world, or at least some of the characters do. That's where I'll end that. So it's really quite intriguing, and then the artwork of Spalletta and Pancian is really, really nice. That's one thing. It's a really good looking book, and I think that was a big plus in that it had a really good story, but then you had really, really great artwork that just really brought it together. I was really impressed with this, and I think it was really one of the big surprises of the week, and it's definitely worth checking out. Next up, we have The Joneses #1, written by Michael Morsi, with artwork by Alessandro Vitti. So this book spins out of the Resistance book from AWA, which I did read, and it was in a way, it's the best way to kind of think about it. It's kind of an X-Men story where there is this event that basically has people reborn into superheroes, and what the Joneses is it's a whole family of people that have been reborn. So that's really the setup here, and I think you don't necessarily have to have read Resistance to read this. I think it does stand on its own because Morrissey does explain like how these people are reborn, but so like I said, think of like reborn people's like mutants, and they have powers and stuff like that. But I think what is I don't know. Like I said, it was okay, but I think what got me is basically he has turned the story into like conservatives or the right and the left, so in the sense of you have people that are like, we need to have these reborn heroes on a list and all this kind of stuff, and it just feels like it doesn't stray far from like, say, the X-Men formula. It was a decent story and everything, but I think there was just not enough there that for me felt really original enough and enough to like really get me excited about the book. I will say Vitti's artwork is it's a really nice looking book and everything, and I think overall it's okay, but I think it just doesn't elevate itself or differentiate itself from what has gone before, and I think that's where I really struggle with that book. Next up is The Oceans Will Take Us, #1, by Rich Douek, with artwork by Carlos Oliveras. So what this is, it's really, there's a character, Casey Marsh, who moves, he's the new kid in town. And so immediately, so the one thing is it starts off with this one kid swimming out to a bell, and there's this like monster or, like tentacle type monster in the water that pulls him in. Think of Jaws sort of thing, except for it's some mysterious beast or something. And so what it is Marsh wants to join the swim team, and of course the swim team is the jocks, the assholes of the school, and so so you kind of have that. I think what's kind of interesting about it, for me, it got off to a little bit of a slow start, but once it kind of got going, I really was quite surprised how I enjoyed it. Like, I think it had a little bit of a slow build with its setup. Not that it was bad. I just think it was like, it had to set things up. I think there's some really, really good ideas here. And the one thing, Oliveras' artwork, actually, at first it didn't overwhelm me, but as once again, I think it was as the story went along, it kind of charmed me, and I think that's what really I liked about the book, is it's really kind of charming. But I like the fact that it's kind of a balance of like it has a bit of a horror thing going with the thing in the water and everything. But it also has that, like high school drama and stuff like that. And I think overall, the balance is pretty good there. And like I said, it took me a minute to kind of get into it, but once I did, I'm like, I do kind of like this. So I think it's something worth checking out. It's a little, it's a little different. And I think it has, like I said, it's really charming, and I think that's kind of its best asset. So I think it's worth checking out. Next up, we have Batman Beyond Neo Years, #1, written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, with artwork by Max Dunbar. So this is another attempt for DC to try to bring back Batman Beyond. He's had a number of comics over the years, but never anything that really has, the animated one really, I think, went the longest, but there's been a lot of attempts to get him kind of into the regular DC universe somewhat. And it definitely takes place in the future. And what it is Bruce Wayne's dead, and that so Gotham is, once again, kind of like a police state, and Terry McGinnis is trying to, kind of clean up Gotham. He's Batman, but it doesn't seem like he's really making headway into what's going on. So it's like I said, it was kind of interesting and then of course you have the villain that's kind of running the show, and of course we know that the villain is, and once again this is my opinion, is like the guy that's running Gotham or is running Wayne Enterprises now is most likely either the villain or running the villains. Not that that's a big shock, that's usually how it goes, but once again, it's fine for what it is. Kelly and Lansing do a nice job. It's Batman Beyond. If you enjoy Batman Beyond, then you're going to enjoy the book. I don't think there was anything particularly overwhelming here. I will say that Dunbar's artwork is really nice. It's a really good looking book. It's really, in that respect, the art's really, really nice. But I think, it's okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's okay. Next up, we have The Rocketeer, The Great Race, #1, written and drawn by Stephen Mooney. Now, it's been quite a while since we've actually had a Rocketeer miniseries. But then, of course, we're running into the 40th anniversary of the first appearance of the Dave Stevens' Rocketeer, and so previously the miniseries were different creators doing short stories and stuff, but this is really the first time in a while that we've had in this case one creator doing a full story with the Rocketeer, and it'll be Stephen Mooney doing the story, and it's really interesting because once again I read the Rocketeer when it first came out, and once again I waited years and years and years for it to finally be finished, because Dave was very meticulous, and they went through many different publishers. So in a way, it's always somewhat hard for me to read a Rocketeer story because I always think of Dave. That's not a bad thing, and I think I'm so glad that that he basically that IDW now is doing Rocketeer books, and I think it's good because it's such a great character that I'm glad that the legacy that Dave set forth with the character continues. And I think Mooney has really captured a lot of what Stevens was able to do. Now, obviously, there's always a danger of trying to be too much like Dave, which you kind of have to be, but then you also have to strike out on your own. I think Mooney really does find a balance in both story and art to balance those things out. It's very slavish to Stevens, but it's also like it's definitely its own story, and I think, like I said, I think Mooney pulls it off quite well. The artwork is actually quite nice, and he definitely I don't want to say mimics. I mean, he definitely keeps it in the tone that Dave set. I think that's really the best way to do it. But it's very much Mooney's artwork. But I think he keeps it in visually in the world that Steven set up. I really think that's the best way to describe it. And the story is actually a really, once again, you have Nazis. You always look, it's set during the period. Nazis are bad. Nothing like beating up Nazis, and it's always a win. And so this first issue gets off to a really good start. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I think I think I'll be more settled in when it comes to the second issue, because like I said, I've been waiting for a new Rocketeer story for so long, and I think it's just one of those that it's so overwhelming, and that I think I need time for it to seep in. But saying that, I really think it's worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of the Rocketeer. If you have never read the Rocketeer, this is a really good place to start, beyond reading Dave Stevens' original story, but I think it really gets you into that universe, and I'm really happy, and and bravo to Mooney for pulling it all together. And I really think it's worth checking out. I did enjoy it. Next up, we have Batman Killing Time, #2, written by Tom King, with artwork by David Marquez. So the first issue of this came out really right close to when the new Batman film came out, and it was really interesting because I'm a really big fan of Tom King, but it was very interesting because the first issue was actually very kind of by the numbers. Like, it was a good story, but it didn't have that Tom King like spin. It just felt like, but what's interesting is now in the second issue, this issue is very much Tom King. As a matter of fact, the story has constant time jumps, which are always difficult to do. But once again, when you have somebody like King doing it, each page, whenever there's a time shift, it'll say, such and such date, 1 year from in the past, or 1 month ago, or 1 month in the future, that kind of thing. So he's very adamant about paying attention to when you do a time jump. It's like, okay, here's how it relates to the current story. And so you have all these so the first issue was a bank heist, and we find out that the Killer Croc bank heist was a cover for actually the Riddler and Catwoman's heist. So that's what that was. So what this is the second issue is kind of all these interweaving stories, backstories that go into setting up that heist. But we still don't quite know what's going on. We don't know exactly what Riddler and Catwoman stole. But it's definitely like a major story point that we will learn. So it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. Like I said, this is very much Tom King, so I think it really put me at ease. Not that the first issue was bad, but it was a very basic Batman story. But and obviously reading the second issue, I'm like, okay, now I know why he did that first issue the way he did, because that way you set all this stuff up so that way when he did the second issue, you can jump around in times so you're okay and you know what's going on. And then Marquez's artwork, it's a really nice looking book. And I also think this is really actually a good book if you're not, reading a Batman. It's going to be like a 6-issue miniseries. It's, kind of a one and done type story for this. And it's I think a good start for somebody who maybe hasn't read Batman in a while, and I really enjoy it. And I once again, I'm a huge fan of King's work, and he's really done a good job here. Next up, we have Little Monsters #2, written by Jeff Lemire, with artwork by Dustin Nguyen. So the first issue was really very methodically paced. As a matter of fact, it was really entirely set up. It was pure exposition. But so what it is, we're still having the setup of, so we know the kids are vampires, but yet it doesn't seem like that they have, we know that from the first issue that they drink the blood of rats and stuff like that, but apparently they have not had human blood in like a long time. So what the second issue does is there's a man that gets one of the kids comes across a man who it's trapped in rubble, and so he actually drinks his blood. And of course, by drinking human blood, really just like it's almost like an acid trip for the kid, because it's so overwhelming, because he's been used to like just drinking rats or rabbits or whatever they could find. So this is like, an epiphany for him. And so and it also kind of shows how we start seeing the backstory of the kids. We learn how at least one of the kids obviously there was a head vampire that turned her. And so that kind of sets up that. And like I said, it's really intriguing how we're still setting things up, but I really like it. And I think that's one of the things I like about what Lemire's doing with this book, is how the story is kind of slowly washing over you. And that's a real rarity in comics. It's really hard to do, but it doesn't surprise me that Lemire can do that. But I think really what is making this is the way that Dustin Nguyen does the artwork, and how he's able to blend it in so perfectly with Lemire's story that it allows it to just, not only story wise flow over you, but visually just like really come together. And it's just this. I'm really, really impressed by this book, and I like the fact that they're taking their time to let it unfold, which is a very rare thing in comics to do. And mostly because a lot of people, it's very hard to pull off, but I have to give it to Lemire and Lewin, Win, that they have pulled this off perfectly. It's a wonderful book, and really just, I cannot wait to see where they take it from here. Next up, we have Wonder Woman Historia, the Amazons, #2, written by Kelly Sue DeConnick, with artwork by Gene Ha. So this, each book of this is going to be done by a different artist, and I believe that Nicholas Scott is doing the third chapter, or third and final chapter of this. So really, what this is Hippolyta. It's really the beginning of like the history of the Amazons. So the first issue really kind of was the setup of the gods and how that all ultimately, kind of affects into this story. So what it is Hippolyta is on her quest to, in a really what it is she's ultimately finding her tribe, because there are Amazon tribes already, but this is like this is like the human tribe. And so what it is so the female gods are kind of somewhat overseeing her journey to really establish the Amazons. And that's really, once again, the gods was really the prominent thing in the first issue. This issue is her journey to for her to make her tribe. And that's really what this is. And I really, DeConnick is just this book is absolutely amazing. I mean, the first issue was stunning, and of course the first issue had Phil Jimenez, but I think it's a brilliant move to have a different artist do each story arc, because especially with the gods and everything, it's very perfect to have Phil Jimenez, but then having Gene Ha do this second issue, the way he does the artwork, it's just beautiful. And I think it's just and the way the coloring's done, it kind of gives it a painted look. And it really just, I love the way, especially like there's a lot of dark scenes, and I love the way that not only he draws it, but how it's colored, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And I think it just, his artwork is perfect for this part of the story. And I love how the story, like how it's really, it was written by Kelly. And the other nice thing is in the back, Gene Ha talks about how the artwork's done and how he came to the story, and how DeConnick said, hey, yeah, this is the story, but I want you to also make it your own. And he breaks down certain panels and stuff, and it's really, really fascinating. And it really gives you a nice behind the scenes of how like this issue was put together, and you rarely see that in like a new issue. So I really applaud DC for putting the extra pages in there to show that. I think it's really, really important to see sometimes, kind of peek behind the curtain, especially after how amazing reading this second issue was. It was just absolutely just blew me away. I mean, it really knocked my socks off. I mean, the first issue was stunning. I think the second issue is just as good. And like I said, I actually like the fact that there's a different artist in each arc, because it allows it to breathe in a different way that you rarely get to see. And of course, Ha did Prometheus with Alan Moore, and there's definitely a lot of not similarities, but definitely like visually there's a lot of pull from that. That definitely he used all that he there, and he brought it to this book. It's absolutely wonderful. And the other absolutely beautiful thing, really, it's just absolutely beautiful. It's very touching. In the back of the last page, it's they acknowledge the work of George Perez and his Wonder Woman run, how important it is to this creative team. And it really is, because I think for the modern age, George Perez really set the tone of Wonder Woman, and it was really a nice touch. And of course, we know what's going on with George right now, and it was really it really brought, I think, what they're trying to do with what he did is just really just, it was very touching. It was very touching. And I, like I said, this book, the like I said, it's just absolutely stunning. It's a must buy. Story and art wise, it's just beautiful. Next up, we have Monkey Prince #3, written by Jean Luen Yang, with artwork by Bernard Chang. So the second issue, I struggled a little bit. The first couple issues of this, I really kind of struggle with. But I will say the third issue really, I think, found its balance. And I think once I read the first issue, I think the first issues kind of flow a little bit better. I think that the thing is that I think especially Yang's story is going to work really in probably better in one setting. I think that is kind of what I'm seeing now, especially with this third issue. So you have Marcus, the Monkey Prince, and Pigsy. So Pigsy's training him to, become, the hero that he needs to be, because so basically demons are infecting the world, and so Piggly has to kind of bring him up to speed, because he's going to have to battle, and we're seeing it with now the Penguin has been infected. He's become like this he has become a demon. And so Pigsley thought he would have more time to train Marcus, but obviously that's not going to happen. And then we have Robin thrown into the mix. And so it's really interesting. Like I said, I think this issue really kind of came together better for me. Not that the first two issues were bad, but I think when you get to this third issue, the story is like, okay, I kind of, not that it was not, it's not that I did not understand it. I think it was just like, it was hard to read it on a monthly basis, and sometimes stories are like that, and it does happen, but like I said, I think it pulled together in the third issue, and Bernard Chang's artwork is really, really nice. I really like the beginning when he's teaching him how to like use a cloud as like, kind of a surfboard through the air, and that was really nice, and Bernard Chang's artwork is really nice. He's doing a really good job here, and like I said, this third issue, okay, you got me, and I'll finish it out, and we'll see where it goes. So I am enjoying it. Like I said, it was a little rough in the beginning, but like I said, I think if you look at it as an overall story, then the rough edges that I was seeing in the first couple issues have kind of ebbed away there. So they're kind of gone. And finally, this week we have One Star Squadron #5, written by Mark Russell with artwork by Steve Lieber. So once again, everybody knows that I am a huge Mark Russell fan, and I really have been blown away by this book. And so we have the Heroes for You has been burnt to the ground, and of course now, so there's kind of like, so the police are like, all right, who did this? And it's like, oh wait, Power Girl just got fired. She's probably pissed. Have you seen her use her heat vision lately? I mean, so what I love about this is, first of all, Russell's wit in writing. I mean, it's just spot on. But there is something that happens in this issue that's quite touching. And I think that's what's been really amazing about this book, is that there's the humor, there's the social commentary, but the one thing he really infuses is heart into the story. And there's an incident that happens because of the fire that really just surprises you, and kind of it was very emotional, and I think what really helps it is how we see this story through Red Tornado's eyes. And I think that's been the most amazing thing, is that really this is like the first time that I think we've really seen the human side of Red Tornado. He's a robot and everything, but he has these human emotions in this story, and Russell has really nailed that. And it's been shocking, but like in a really good way. It's just, it really, this book I love, and each issue just gets better. We've got one more issue, and I'm just like, I, I don't know how they do it. And then Lieber's artwork is just wonderful in here. I loved his artwork on the Superman pal Jimmy Olsen, which was absolutely fabulous. If you haven't read that, go buy the trade of that. That's amazing. But I can't think of a better artist that could be doing this, because he really, especially with Red Tornado, he's able to capture the visual emotions of all this story and really just brings it to life. I mean, this book has absolutely blown me away in a lot of respects. This has just been absolutely fabulous, and I think the thing that really kind of hurts the most is that so many people are just not going to be reading this book. The only thing I can hope is that when it comes out in trade, that people will read it. But this book has been absolutely a must buy from day one, and it continues to just blow me away. And like I said, Russell and Lieber are just knocking it out of the park on this one. That's going to do it for this week. I think there wasn't anything that was too terrible. There was a couple that I wasn't super enamored with, but nothing like, oh my God, don't buy that, which is always good. I do not like to it's very hard to give a bad review. Sometimes you have to, but I always try to be honest in the reviews. That's always, for me, the most important thing. So with that being said, as always, public service announcement. I buy all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics, Long Beach, California. Ryan runs a great store. Annie and Eduardo are just absolutely fabulous. Derek Easley, he helps do the videos and their social media and stuff like that. Wendy's there helping out. It's really great. It's they have a great pull service. They offer trades and graphic novels at 30% off every day. Buy and once again, support your local comic shop, because they are the lifeblood of the industry, and it's very important. If you live in the LA area, near Culver City, there's Pulp Fiction Culver City. It's same name, Pulp Fiction. Being Culver City, but completely different owner. Chris and her team run that store. They offer the same great service, similar great service. Once again, she has a great staff and everything. A great store to if you're in the LA area. But once again, support your local comic shop no matter where you live. And as always, we end the show with be kind. Being kind is good. And being kind is just, it really makes you feel better. And the one thing I will say that that got me, reinvigorated was at WonderCon. Everybody, for the most part, was actually kind. There was a really good kindness vibe, and I think maybe that might be the one thing that really, hopefully, can kind of come out of this, that we can be more kind with each other. So be kind to each other, support your local comic shop. And just take care of yourselves. We'll be back next week with more reviews, obviously. And please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And it's always appreciated. Comments are welcome too, both good, bad. But take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again next week. This is Steven from Pop Culture Maven signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.